Dave's part on Washer, it was super trademark. Now, anyone could say that's familiar with Dave's sort of melodic sensibility and writing and like his voice on guitar. But at the time, this was still something that was developing. And the sort of hypnotic qualities of the Spiderland material that runs through all the songs. But Dave's parts really punctuate that song in a way, in the loud solo sort of like, by his standards, extremely sort of crude and just like raucous wailing. But it was the quieter parts and the sort of ascending figure that Dave wrote for Washer. It kind of transformed the song for me, just because it's really delicate and kind of otherworldly. His ability to convey emotion, it seems sort of beyond his age. He's a total sweetheart, and he's extremely empathic and responsive as a musician. And yeah, being able to work with him and give voice to a song like that is like, that's what you want, especially when you're presenting something so vulnerable.
Man, that definitely, I feel like we played that and practiced it and sort of changed it a lot over time. We worked on that one, I feel like, more than any other song. And I mean, I think we all collaborated. That was the best part of the band, is just working out the songs and collaborating. And, it was like there was never any compromise or wasn't anything like that. We would just, all agree eventually on whatever was going to happen. So, yeah, there was a lot of that with that song. And again, maybe he sort of had some ideas about vocals and lyrics before we had ever heard them.
Washer was Brian's song, and to me it distinctly sounded like something he wrote on his nylon string acoustic up in Evanston. Like, it just sounded like, because it seemed like he was writing songs on acoustic guitar more, and then bringing them to electric, or like bringing them to practice, and that really seemed like an acoustic guitar song. I think he fingerpicks it. And Brian and I especially were super into Neil Young and, Nick Drake and Leonard Cohen. We were getting into all that stuff. And so it just seemed logical to me that we would start having some of that influence like happening in songs. So when he brought it, I just thought it was a really beautiful song. I feel like we just kind of approached it the same way we approached every other song.
It seems maybe sort of like an outgrowth of some of the stuff we were listening to at the time, which was more dynamic. And I could say like mainstream or something, as far as Neil Young and Leonard Cohen, and maybe classical music, played some influential role, which I had grown up involved with and listened to a lot, and still sort of did at that time.
I mean, listening to it now, I think it's a pretty big nod to like a Neil Young song probably, but that's more just like looking through the current lens or whatever. We sure did practice it a lot, and he put a lot into those vocals for sure.
Good night, my love. Remember me as you fall to sleep. Fill your pockets with the dust of the memory that rises from the shoes on my feet. I won't be back here, though we may meet again.
Brian worked on the vocals on a 4-track, mostly like solo. And we would listen to some of the stuff he did, or he'd play it for a little, excerpts from it or parts just to show us where his head was at. And, I think when I first heard him sing, I loved it. I'd never heard him use that part of his voice.
He didn't talk about it. He didn't like share his feelings like, oh, I think I'm going to have to sing on this one or something. It was just, he kind of did the vocals almost like on his own. I don't want to say in secret, but we didn't play him much with him doing the vocals.
I don't ever remember being like, why is he doing that? Or that sounds like shit. Or I think we all just kind of let him do his thing. Like, I don't remember, which if you think about it, that's, I guess, maybe kind of interesting that we hadn't really heard the vocals at the forefront. And then he really just did it the way he thought it should be done, and nobody said a word about anything. Which probably could be, some of that is due to time constraints. But I don't remember ever thinking like, wow, that's weird. Why do you sing it like that? Or, like we all just took it for what it was and went with it,
With Washer, I have very distinct memories of being terrified of singing that song. Huge fan of croakers, like Neil Young, Leonard Cohen, Bon Scott. I enjoyed singers that were not afraid to be vulnerable or just present things in a fairly unflattering way, I guess. I knew I was going to have to sing on a Washer. I kind of knew that as I was like playing the riff on guitar. There's just no getting out of it. And I rehearsed it in the privacy of my parents' car. I don't think anyone had heard those vocals before, the parts. And it was definitely uncomfortable. I was not at all confident and was not at all capable as a singer. But at the same time, I knew I had to do it.
I know it's dark outside. Don't be afraid. Every time I ever cried for fear, it's just a mistake that I made. Wash yourself in your tears and build your church on the strength of your faith.
Someone told me that Steve had said, Albini, that when he heard Washer for the first time, he felt deeply embarrassed for Brian, just because Brian makes himself incredibly vulnerable in Spiderland. And I think it was, in the 80s, it was pretty harsh to hear, like, in the punk world, like somebody like going like full transparency like that and showing a sensitive side, really. But then Steve said that the second time he listened to it, he was in tears. So it was like, I think it was a shock at first in the punk world to be like, oh shit, I don't know if I like this, And then, but like once your defenses are kind of down and you can just hear it as a song, you'd have to be a pretty vile person to listen to Washer and think it was dishonest in some way.
Washer, for me, it was a personal, the lyrics were very personal, and I was dealing with like a breakup with my high school sweetheart, and we had been together for a few years. And at that point in my life, I had really only had this one romantic relationship, and it was super intense. It was like kind of obsessive at some level, but it was just one of those, figuring it out phases. never really having had a relationship that was intimate and like maintained over maybe just 4 years, but at that time with, when you're experiencing these changes and coming of age, it feels like, a vast lifetime of experience shared with a partner. So yeah, the lyrics were very personal and they were less abstract and more direct than the lyrics press up on some of the other songs.
Please listen to me. Don't let go. Don't let this desperate moonlight leave me your empty pillow. Promise me the sun will rise again.
Oh yeah, dynamics didn't really seem to exist very much in the punk world, and like nobody wanted dynamics, They just wanted to bounce off the walls. But the going from quiet to loud to quiet, like that was stuff we were doing in Maurice already. So it didn't seem that unusual. But Brian, or like Britt too, all of us, like kind of built this song that I feel like it did build to the when you hit the distortion pedal. It used to be just like off on, and no one ever built to that part. And I feel like the loud quiet is like really, I feel like that's the most obvious thing about Slint that people picked up on. And the more interesting stuff is the subtleties,
People act like we're the ones who invented quiet parts and loud parts. And it's like, no, like listen to Metallica, or like, there's no freaking way that like that band is a band who invented quiet parts and loud parts. Like there's millions of examples of that from before that band, Within its genre, that makes more sense. At the time, it was more balls to the wall kind of stuff, I guess. But I would say overall, that's a more sensitive album than maybe a lot of stuff at that time. Like, his singing on that is pretty naked. Like he's definitely putting himself out there,
With Washer, we did work on the dynamics in rehearsal because we had to adjust them without the benefit of being able to hear the vocal at the same time. So that was one song where I think I really had to like share my notes with a band to try and make sure that the dynamics and also just the space available for the vocal was there when it was needed. My croaking required careful handling in the framework of the song arrangement. And thankfully, Britt and Dave were great. They're exceptionally talented, and in terms of musicians that can really make a song come to life, Washer is very much a testament to their abilities to do that.
I too am tired now, embracing thoughts of tonight's dreamless sleep.
When I was on the reunion tour, like one of the, fans or like audience members told me that they were so obsessed with Washer when they got Spiderland that they wanted to know the words. So they stayed up and wrote out all the lyrics to Washer. And the next morning, their girlfriend saw it and was deeply concerned that they were suicidal. They thought it was a suicide note. And then I thought about just seeing the words on a piece of paper, like scrawled like that. I was like, whoa, I could totally see that, you know? Like that would be pretty scary to wake up to if your partner left that for you. Uh, but that's how heavy the lyrics are, even without singing or anything. Just as a written word, I think the lyrics are really heavy.
I really was feeling it. He was totally earnest, and I did not want to let my limitations as a singer obscure like the sentiment that I was trying to convey. I just kind of hoped for the best. And I definitely remember, feeling extremely self-conscious about recording the vocal with the rest of the band on the other side of the glass in the control room. Again, this is a scenario that many listeners these days will be unfamiliar with, being in a commercial recording studio where there's a formal control room and you are in a isolated, different room performing whatever it is, and you complete your performance and then you look up to a set of, heads kind of like in this other space, like, yeah, it was pretty good. Just, it was an experience that was still fairly novel for us at that point.
I mean, I don't think we sweated it much, except when we had to actually play in front of our friends. And that was very nerve-wracking, I thought, because it did feel like taking a chance, and putting it out there. And it definitely was really scary. And in fact, people's reaction was somewhat, I don't know, half into it, half not, or, not that into it or whatever. But, we were into what we were into. And so we were just kind of in our own world,
I was lucky as a singer and as a human being, just to be able to work in that sort of an environment where all of us were pretty darn patient human beings. And that's, there are a lot of bands that they would have really struggled to come through that experience, I think, just because, we really had to give each other a lot of space and rely upon each other for support.
I am safe from home.
I love that Brian was really expressive during that recording session musically. One thing I do remember in the studio is when we were mixing Washer. At one point, I think we all had our hands on the mixing desk because there were so many moves that had to be done. But we were mixing Washer and we had tape with little lines like where the faders had to move from here to here. And we all each had our little job at this section. This goes here and there because there was no automation and stuff. Brian was in charge of the loud guitars when that part kicked in, and he had a line that he went to in the mix that we ended up using on the record. I don't know if anybody else even saw this, but when it went to the loud part, Brian would go way past the line. Like he was feeling it. Like he was he was jacking those guitars way up. Man, it was from a Neil Young song. I can't remember what song it is now, but he does like a one note solo. where he goes, you know, and I was like, fuck yeah, like who does a one note solo? And so I was like, at some point I have to do a one note solo. And they wanted me to solo on that section. And I think that was actually the first thing I did. I just went to that bend and I was like, okay, that's the note. But as we practiced it more, I started doing other stuff. I added other stuff, but basically I'm just bending that one note for the solo. But it is super hard, that part, to play it on guitar live, because I have to go from the neck pickup to the bridge pickup for the loud part. So I flick the toggle switch on my guitar, hit the distortion, go into the solo, and then I have to go from the solo, that bending that note and playing this other stuff with my pinky, like to switching back to the neck pickup and turning off the distortion and immediately playing the washer riff perfect. And going from that solo to that, it's like it's a bunch of moves that have to happen in a split second, So I'm like, I'm trying to get to that part. But like that's how you get your thrills when you play in Slint, I guess, those little moments.